Picture this. The world has vanished. There is no sky, no ground, only a screaming, biting white. The wind is a razor against your cheek, and every breath you draw feels like swallowing needles of ice. You are Eliza, and you are lost in a Dakota blizzard, a whiteout so absolute it has stolen the mountains, the trees, and the very path beneath your feet. Your cabin, your only sanctuary in this unforgiving wilderness, is a memory, a ghost you can no longer find. You are freezing, your hope dwindling with the last of the sun's light, a sun you can feel but cannot see. As you stumble forward, convinced this is your final journey, your boot catches on something that isn't a rock or a frozen branch. It's soft, a bundle of furs, half buried in a fresh drift of snow. Your first instinct, a cold and practical one, is to ignore it. Survival is a selfish master. But something, a flicker of humanity that the storm has not yet extinguished, makes you kneel. Your fingers, numb and clumsy, pull back the stiff, icy pelts. And you see him, a baby. His face is the color of pale copper, his tiny lips tinged with blue. His eyes are closed, but a faint, almost imperceptible puff of vapor escapes his mouth. He is alive. In that moment, the universe shrinks to a single, stark choice. To leave him is to condemn him to certain death, but to take him is to share your own dwindling warmth, to have your already slim chances of survival. The wind howls its indifference. It is a choice between one life and potentially two deaths. You look at his innocent, peaceful face, a tiny, silent life in a world of sound and fury, and you know you cannot leave him. You cannot. With a surge of desperate strength, you gather the bundle into your arms, pressing it against your chest. The child is a fragile ember against the encroaching frost of your own body. You have no map, no compass but the moral one that now burns within you. Straightening up, you face the screaming white void, no longer just a woman fighting for her own life, but a guardian fighting for another. The cabin door didn't open so much as it was ripped from its frozen seal by the last of Eliza's strength. She stumbled inside, a whirlwind of snow and exhaustion, kicking the door shut against the raging storm. The silence within was a deafening roar compared to the tempest outside. Her first act was not to shed her own frozen layers, but to rush to the hearth, laying the precious bundle on the bearskin rug. Her hands shook violently as she fumbled with the flint and steel, her breath catching in ragged sobs of effort and relief. Sparks flew, catching on the tinder. A tiny flame flickered, then grew, a fragile blossom of orange and yellow in the gloom. As the fire crackled to life, casting dancing shadows on the log walls, Eliza turned her full attention to the infant. She gently unwrapped the layers of fur, revealing a small, still form. She worked methodically, her fear giving way to a focused calm. She chafed his tiny limbs, her own cold hands trying to impart a warmth they barely possessed. She warmed a cloth by the fire and gently wiped his face, murmuring soft, soothing words that were lost in the howl of the wind outside. For hours she worked. The cabin, once just a shelter, transformed into a bastion, a fortress of warmth and life against a world of white death. As the baby's skin slowly regained a healthier hue and his breathing deepened into a steady rhythm, Eliza finally allowed herself to feel the bone-deep weariness in her own body. She had done it. They had survived. Days bled into one another, marked only by the shifting light through the single frost-etched window. The blizzard raged on, cocooning them in a world of their own. Eliza and the child, whom she had started calling Little Owl for the way his wide, dark eyes followed her every move, fell into a quiet routine. Feeding, sleeping, staring into the fire. In those long, silent hours, Eliza felt a part of her heart, long dormant since the death of her husband, stir back to life. This small, vulnerable being depended on her completely, and in that dependence, she found a new and profound purpose. Then, on the fourth day, a new sound broke the monotony. A sharp, insistent knocking at the door. Eliza froze, her hand flying to the old hunting knife she kept on the mantel. No one came to this valley, especially not in a storm like this. The townsfolk of prosperity kept to their own, and she had made it clear she wanted nothing to do with them. The knocking came again, stronger this time. Holding her breath, she crept to the door, knife held tight in her hand. "Who is it?" she called out, her voice trembling slightly. A deep voice, calm and steady, answered through the thick wood. "I saw your smoke. I mean no harm. I need shelter from the storm." His voice carried no menace, only a weary gravity. Eliza hesitated. Her life had taught her to be wary, especially of strangers. But her heart, softened by the presence of the child, argued against her fear. She had been the beneficiary of a miracle. Perhaps it was time to offer one of her own. Slowly, she drew back the heavy wooden bolt. The man who stood on her doorstep seemed carved from the very mountains that surrounded them. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with long black hair dusted with snow. His face was stark and handsome, defined by high cheekbones and a strong jaw, but it was his eyes that held her. They were dark and piercing, holding a history of sorrow she recognized instantly. A thin, white scar ran from the corner of his left eye down to his mouth, a permanent mark of some past violence. He was a native warrior, that much was clear from his buckskin clothing and the stoic set of his features. He gave a slight nod, his gaze flickering from her to the knife she still held, then to the baby sleeping soundly by the fire. A flicker of something unreadable surprise, then a deep, aching sadness passed through his eyes. "You have a child," he stated, his voice a low rumble. Eliza tightened her grip on the knife. "He is with me. What is your name?" "I am called Kale," he said, his eyes never leaving the infant. "I have been tracking a woman from my tribe. She fled into the storm. With her son, the world tilted on its axis." Eliza's blood ran cold. The baby little owl was his, or belonged to his people. She slowly lowered the knife, her expression a mixture of fear and dawning understanding. She did not make it," Eliza whispered, her heart aching for the woman she never knew. "I found him." In the snow, Kale closed his eyes for a moment, his stoic mask cracking to reveal a profound grief. He had not been hunting her. He had been searching for family. He looked back at Eliza, and for the first time, she saw not a threat, but a man drowning in loss. "Please," she said, her voice soft but clear. "Come inside. Come out of the storm." He stepped across the threshold, bringing with him the cold of the outside world, but also the beginning of a fragile, unspoken alliance. The cabin, once a solitary refuge, now held a quiet, shared tension. Kale moved with a silent grace, a phantom in the small space, his grief a palpable presence. He did not ask to hold the child, but sat by the hearth, watching him sleep with an intensity that was both protective and heartbreaking. Eliza learned his story in fragments, offered up in the fire-lit darkness. The baby's name was Ahanu, meaning he laughs, a name that felt like a cruel joke in the face of their circumstances. Ahanu's mother was Kale's sister. Their people had been driven from their ancestral lands by the greedy expansion of the nearby town of Prosperity, led by its ruthless mayor, Jedediah Thornton. In the chaos and violence of the forced removal, Kale's sister had fled with her son, hoping to find a hidden valley her grandfather had spoken of, a place of safety. She had walked directly into the blizzard's deadly embrace. Eliza, in turn, shared her own story of prosperity. Her husband, a good and honest blacksmith, had dared to speak out against Thornton's land grabs and brutal tactics. A week later, he was found dead, his death ruled an accident. Heartbroken and fearing for her own life, Eliza had sold everything and fled to this isolated cabin, a place her husband had built for them as a future escape. They were two sides of the same coin, victims of the same man's avarice. A shared enemy and a shared charge, the small boy sleeping between them, began to forge a bond stronger than steel. The slow burn of trust began. They worked together, their movements becoming a synchronized ballet of survival. Kale, with his intimate knowledge of the wilderness, showed her how to set better traps for game, how to read the subtle signs of the weather. Eliza, with her quiet resilience, tended to the cabin, making it a true home, her gentle care for Ahanu a constant, soothing presence. One evening, as she was rocking the baby, Kale spoke, his voice low. "You did not have to take him in. You risked your own life for a child you did not know." Eliza looked up, her gaze meeting his across the flickering flames. "He was a life. Innocent. Leaving him was never a choice." Kale nodded slowly, a deep respect dawning in his eyes. "My people have a word," he said. "Takaki. It means to care for another's life as you would your own. You have Takaki." Eliza, in that moment, the last of the walls between them crumbled. He was not just a warrior, and she was not just a widow. They were two souls who had found a glimmer of light in a shared darkness. The storm outside finally broke, and a pale, watery sun illuminated the valley. But the real storm was yet to come. With the melting snows came the return of the world they had fled. One afternoon, Kale, standing watch outside the cabin, stiffened. His hand went to the knife at his belt. Following his gaze, Eliza saw them. 3 riders making their way up the valley floor. At their lead was a portly man in a fine coat, his face florid and smug. Eliza's heart turned to ice. She knew that face. It was Mayor Jedediah Thornton. Thornton reined his horse in before the small cabin. His lip curled in a sneer as he took in the scene. He dismounted with a grunt, his 2 hired thugs flanking him, their hands resting on the pistols at their hips. "Well, well, the grieving widow?" Thornton boomed, his voice oozing false cordiality. "I see you've made yourself at home on my property." "This is not your land, Thornton," Eliza said, stepping forward, her body instinctively shielding the doorway. Kale moved to stand beside her, a silent, formidable shadow. Thornton's eyes narrowed, taking in Kale with dismissive contempt. "And you've taken in a stray. This land, girl, was foreclosed on to pay your husband's outstanding debts. It's all legal. All on paper." He waved a document in the air. "A lie, like everything else that comes from your mouth." Eliza shot back, her voice shaking with rage, not fear. Thornton's eyes then fell upon Ahanu, who Eliza had bundled in a cradle just inside the door. A flicker of cruel recognition crossed his face. "Ah," he said softly, a genuine smile finally appearing. "So that's what this is about. The little chief, the last of the red water line." He looked from the baby to Kale, then to Eliza, the pieces clicking into place in his mind. "This isn't about a worthless patch of land, is it? It's about him. He's the heir to the old treaty claim on this entire valley. With him gone." His voice trailed off, his vile intention hanging in the air. "You will not touch him." Kale's voice was a low growl, the sound of rocks grinding together. Thornton chuckled, a horrid, wet sound. "I have the law on my side. And if that fails—" He patted the gun at his side. "I have this. Be sensible, woman. Give me the child and the deed to this hovel, and I'll let you walk away. If not, I will be back. And I will burn this place to the ground with all of you in it." He climbed back onto his horse, his face a mask of triumphant cruelty. "You have until sundown." As Thornton and his men rode away, a heavy dread settled over the cabin. The peaceful sanctuary had become a trap. Eliza looked at Kale, her eyes wide with terror. "What do we do?" she whispered. Kale's face was grim, his jaw set like granite. He stared at the distant peaks, a plan forming in his mind. He spent the next hour gathering specific woods, his movements deliberate and urgent. On a high ridge overlooking the valley, he built a fire, but not for warmth. He added damp leaves and green pine boughs, creating a thick column of white smoke that rose straight and true into the clear afternoon sky. It was a smoke signal, a desperate, final plea. As the sun began its slow descent, painting the sky in fiery shades of orange and red, they waited. Eliza held Ahanu close, humming a soft lullaby, her heart a frantic drum against her ribs. Kale stood at the window, a sentinel watching the shadows lengthen. The sound came first, the rhythmic beat of horse hooves. Not 2 or 3 but many, dozens. Eliza's hope plummeted. Thornton had returned, and he had brought an army. She squeezed her eyes shut, pressing a kiss to Ahanu's forehead. Kale turned from the window, his face unreadable. He drew his knife. "Stay with the boy," he said, his voice calm. He walked to the door, ready to face an entire posse alone. He was ready to die to buy them a few more seconds of life. He pulled the door open, bracing for the onslaught. But the men who sat on their horses in the dying light were not Thornton's thugs. There were 33 of them. 33 native warriors, their faces grim and resolute, their presence filling the clearing with a powerful, silent energy. They were the remnants of Kale's tribe. His signal had been seen. At their head sat an elder, his face a roadmap of wrinkles, his eyes holding the wisdom of 1,000 winters. He looked past Kale, his gaze finding Eliza standing in the doorway, clutching the small bundle to her chest. He gave a slow, solemn nod. They had not come for revenge. They had come for their future. Just then, another sound echoed from the far end of the valley. Thornton was returning, his small band of bullies riding with arrogant confidence. They crested the final rise, ready to enact their fiery judgment, and stopped dead. Their smug expressions dissolved into disbelief, then raw fear. Instead of a lone woman and a single warrior, they faced a silent, unmovable wall of men who were the true masters of this land. Thornton's face went pale. His legal documents and hired guns were meaningless here. This was a court of an older law. The elder urged his horse forward, stopping before the trembling mayor. He did not shout. He did not threaten. He simply spoke, his voice carrying on the still evening air. "This child is the son of the mountain and the stream. He is protected by the spirits of his ancestors, and he is protected by us. You have no power here, Jedediah Thornton. Your laws are ghosts. Your threats are dust in the wind. Leave this place and never return. If you do, the valley itself will swallow you." There was no battle. There was no fight. There was only the crushing weight of moral authority. Thornton, utterly defeated, his power revealed as the sham it was, yanked his horse's reins and fled, his thugs scrambling to follow. They vanished into the twilight, ghosts running from the dawn. In the clearing, a new family was born. Eliza, Kale, Ahanu, and 33 warriors who would help them build a new sanctuary, a place of true prosperity, founded not on greed, but on courage and love. What is the true source of strength? Is it found in a legal document, a loaded gun, or a title bought with fear? Or is it found in the quiet, unshakable courage it takes to kneel in a blizzard and lift a life into your arms? We are so often told that power lies in what we can take, what we can control. But the greatest power, the most enduring legacy, is found in what we choose to protect. In a world that can often feel like a blinding storm, we are all faced with choices. To walk past the bundle in the snow or to stop. To bolt the door against a stranger or to offer shelter. To stand alone against injustice or to send up a signal of hope, trusting that others will see it and come. The story of Eliza, Kale, and Ahanu reminds us that we are stronger together than we are apart, and that a family is not always born of blood, but forged in the fire of shared struggle and shared compassion. If this story of courage moved you, and if you believe in the power of a found family, let us know in the comments below. Your stories and thoughts give us strength. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more tales that celebrate the unshakable resilience of the human spirit.